Happy spooky season, happy October, welcome back to a new video. If you're new here, I'm Anna. This is where I talk about books. Today we're going to talk about fall books, autumn books, books that just feel like fall to me. So this is a very subjective list of books, I would say. If you're looking for books that, I don't know, tick certain boxes, for example, books that feel like Gilmore Girls or cozy fantasy. Well, I do have one fantasy book, but it's the exception, I would say. My list today doesn't necessarily include horror either. There is one book on the list that is considered to be horror, but I will give a better disclaimer when I talk about it, because I would say anyone can read it. Yeah, some of them are a little bit spooky, but this is not necessarily a list of spooky reads either. So these are all my disclaimers, just to let you know what type of recommendations you're getting today. I am wearing my ghost earrings that my friend Laurel gave to me. They very much remind me of Phoebe Bridgers, but also I feel like they're very appropriate for fall and for October. So I thought I would wear them today. I am drinking this massive cup of tea. Doesn't this just remind you of the coffee cups in Gilmore Girls at Luke's Diner? No, I have been fighting a very nasty cold for 2 weeks now, and I'm still not feeling 100%. So yeah, I will be sipping on this just to make sure that I can, you know, speak properly. But yeah, let's get into it. My first recommendation of books that you should read this fall season is The Best Rock by Evie Wyld. To me, this is the perfect fall book. It is set on the coast of Scotland, in this house that overlooks the Best Rock. It includes 3 time frames. We have 3 different women, 3 different characters who we follow. We have Viv, who is guiding us through the current time. Then we have Sarah, who is considered to be a witch in the 1600s, I believe. And then we have Ruth, who is kind of dealing with the aftermath of World War II. So this is for anyone who loves a gothic tale, a modern gothic tale. Yeah, as I've said, Sarah is being accused of witchcraft, so you have some witchy stuff in this as well. And also we have my personal favorite, ghosts that haunt the narrative. I love a character haunting the narrative. Love it. Sign me up. I think the reason why I love it so much is, okay, first of all, the different timelines. I'm a sucker for that. The haunting of the narrative, which I love, but also the setting plays such a huge role in this book that you can almost consider it an additional character. And yeah, I mean, if you've seen some of my videos, you know that I love a good setting. So yeah, this book does it really well. As I've said, we have some witchy stuff, we have some kind of haunting. This is definitely not a horror kind of spooky, but it is spooky in a gothic kind of sense, I would say. But the main horror in this book is male violence, so please make sure to check some trigger warnings before you pick this up, because it is very violent and brutal at some points. So yes, it deals with gendered violence, violence against women, and the patriarchy that kind of, you know, is present in all of these timelines. But yeah, this is very good for a stormy, rainy night with a blanket and a cup of tea and just kind of, you know, being sucked into this world. Just, you know, spending some time on the Scottish coast. I will never stop recommending this book because this is a book for everyone. This is so special. I think everyone will find something in this. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about why this feels like fall to me. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. We have Piranesi who lives in this kind of labyrinth. He calls it a house, and the house has always provided for him. So he lives in these grand halls that are filled with statues. There's water inside of this house. They have this relationship where he's just super grateful to be living there. He goes on all these little adventures. So yeah, we have Piranesi living his best life in the house, you know, just doing his little routine that he has. And then something happens. He discovers that someone else is in the house. And this is then his adventure, trying to find out who is this other person inside the house. So I would say that this definitely has a mystery aspect to it, but at the same time, it feels so cozy. You can definitely read this in a day. You can, you know, just get cozy on the sofa and immerse yourself into this world. Yes, this is a fantasy book, but I would recommend this to everyone, as I've said before. I'm not a fantasy reader, but I love this book so much. So don't be scared that this is a fantasy book if you're usually not into fantasy. Next up, we have, I would say, one of the grand dames of horror fiction. I know I said in the beginning of this video that this is not a list of horror books, but I had to include her, and also I would say it's not the scary kind of horror, but more like, so you don't have body horror or anything, but it's more like psychological horror, I would say. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. I keep talking about her. It's Daphne du Maurier, and this is a short story collection by her. And I wanted to recommend a very specific short story. So this collection also includes The Birds, which was then turned into, well, probably Hitchcock's second most famous film. I would say Psycho is his most famous one, but yeah, The Birds is actually based on a short story by Daphne du Maurier. I wanted to recommend Don't Look Now, which has also been turned into a film with Donald Sutherland, and the film is amazing. If you haven't seen it, I mean, read the short story first, but also watch the film. It's so good, and it has one of the best love scenes in cinematic history. You can fight me on that, but you will lose. So Don't Look Now, the short story, takes place in Venice, which already, you know, feels like a spooky setting, I would say. And it's about this couple, John and Laura, who recently lost their child. And they're taking this trip to Venice, and very early on they meet these sisters, a couple of sisters. One of them is blind, and these sisters have what is called the sight. So there is some paranormal aspect to the story. Laura gets very involved with the sisters because, of course, she's grieving the death of her daughter, and these sisters kind of promise her to be able to make contact with her child. And yeah, it's just about how, you know, grief and also this relationship that Laura forms with the sisters kind of impact the couple and their marriage. So I would say, yes, there is some paranormal horror to it, but it's very much about human relationships. And if you're wondering why I'm not talking about Rebecca, because I always talk about Rebecca, because yes, fall is the perfect season to read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I have a whole video on classics that you can read for fall. I will link it somewhere. And in that video I am talking about Rebecca. I'm also talking about Frankenstein, which is one of my favorite novels of all time. So yeah, also make sure to check that out if you're looking for some classic fall recommendations. Next up, I have a book that is as special to me as Piranesi is. I'm going to be talking about Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. This was super popular when it came out in 2020. I think it won the Women's Prize that year also. And it's now being turned into a film with Paul Mescal as Shakespeare. I will be set. I will be set in that cinema. Anyway, let's talk about the book. Read the book before you watch the film, because this is, it's so good. Similar to Don't Look Now, this is about a couple who loses a child, and the book depicts how they handle this grief and how the death of the child influences their relationship. The father, the playwright, deals with it by writing a play with a very similar name. Oh, I should have said Hamnet is the name of the child that dies. It's the name of the son. Again, this includes witchy stuff. It deals with the plague that was, you know, haunting England at that time. It's very fairy tale like. If you like fairy tales, I feel like you would enjoy this. Again, we have different timelines, we have a huge cast of characters, but at the same time it still feels very personal. This is a very emotional read. You really feel for the characters and you feel very close to them. At least that's what happened to me. I cried so much reading this. I think Maggie O'Farrell does such a great job really making you feel for these characters, making you feel close to them, kind of experiencing their emotions. You know, they're going through this very traumatic event and you really, yeah, you are just there, you know. Maybe you haven't read it yet, so this fall season would be a perfect time to pick it up. The final book I would like to recommend is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I am not trying to be insensitive by saying that this feels like the perfect fall read to me, but maybe to explain why I've included this in the fall list. It's mainly the setting, so a huge part of the story takes place on campus. It takes place at a school. It's a story about a girl who has a relationship with her English teacher. And I'm just calling it a relationship because I don't want this video to get flagged. But of course we are talking about an abusive relationship. This is not an age gap romance. This is very much a post-Me Too novel. I feel like at this point there are a lot of novels dealing with the Me Too movement, or rather with the circumstances that led to the Me Too movement, but I feel like this one is very well done. The prose in this is amazing. I feel like this novel perfectly encapsulates what it's like to be manipulated in that kind of way and how it affects you throughout your whole life and how you cannot really escape this type of abuse. The main character, for that reason, is not very likable. I feel like I had a hard time with her when I first read this because I was a bit disappointed in her refusal to kind of deal with what has happened to her, and you know, still telling herself that it wasn't that bad and you know that he's not a bad person. But after a while you really, or at least I really understood why it is so hard for her to really, you know, acknowledge this. So yeah, it is a good book for fall, but you know, make sure to check the trigger warnings. Also be aware that this is not an easy read. I know there was some controversy around this book because there was There were some accusations of plagiarism, but I think they have been debunked in the end, so maybe read up on that if you're interested. But yeah, I would still recommend this book because I feel like it really does a great job at dealing with this kind of topic. Okay, I almost finished this huge bowl of tea. These are my recommendations for fall. I hope you get some inspiration. Maybe you have been planning on reading one of these for a long time and this video will, motivate you to finally pick them up. If you do, I hope you enjoy. I hope you have a great start to the season. It's my favorite season, oh my god. I will be doing some vlogs definitely, and yeah, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. If you enjoyed this video, you can give it a thumbs up, and yeah, I will be seeing you in the next one. Bye!